Okay, y'all, here we have a real simple situation that we're going to need to use a sectional ladder on. Now here you'll see that there's a flat area. Also you'll see that there's steps there. Now I really don't understand how this makes the ladder non-functional having levelers. Actually, levelers in this situation are going to create the situation to be workable. If you were in this area right here, you'll see that there's an incline, a slight incline right here. Now if you had to put your ladder in this area where the rocks are, what would you do? There's no area here but for the ladder. If you were to see, there's the ladder. You come up to the ladder, and the ladder is at an angle. There's nowhere to put anything but your leveler. If you see, I got the leveler. See the angle on this? There's a straight line, and there's an angle there. You need to bring your ladder up and set it like that. Now it's straight. If you were on this here, if you were sitting on this rock, what would you do? You would have to put your leveler down. Now you have more room to set your ladder. But what are you going to do if you're on an incline like that? You got to have levelers. Not having levelers on your ladder is not a good idea. Now here we have the levelers on the steps. Look at that. Look how much nicer that makes that. Now tell me how you can't have levelers there. You try to push it over, you're not going to have enough room. Now pretend like as if there's no levelers on this ladder and it was just a straight bottom. You wanted to put your ladder in here. Where are you going to set your ladder? You can't set your ladder nowhere. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You need to have levelers on your ladder. Your levelers work there. They work here. They work here. Oh, and by the way, levelers will work on flat ground, because you just collapse them, and now the ladder is flat. But here is not a flat area. What are you going to do if you don't have levelers on your ladder? You need to have levelers on your ladder. It makes your ladder function better. Without it, you're limited on what you can do with your ladder, whether it's a sectional ladder or even an extension ladder. You need to have levelers on your ladder. You can have these kind of levelers, or you can buy the Leveloks. You could even buy the pivot tool. A pivot tool will work the same as a brick. I don't see any bricks here where I can grab them, but well, now here's an example of the ladder actually being placed against the building and needing a leveler on the bottom. Without a leveler, it doesn't work. Now, I've never used a pivot tool, but your base being that close to the edge of the step, I don't know if a pivot tool will work right there. How will a pivot tool work that close to the edge of the step? Now, I'm not going to say it won't work because I've never had it work, but I know these will work right here against the edge of that step. You see that? You see that? Just like that. Another tool that we're using right here is what was said about them being not good. This tool right here puts that right below the window, and I can catch the big plate and the slider plate right there. Now, I guess we can say we don't need levelers, but right here I need levelers. Been working with levelers for a long time on piece ladders, sectional ladders, stack ladders, whichever name you want to call it. But this right here is necessary to have on your ladder in this place. And this is a very simple place right here, these steps. If you were working on an incline with those rocks, if you were working on an incline like this right here, that's going at this angle like this right here, or you have a rockery like this right here, you got to put your ladder on something like on that rock there, and it goes off to the side right here. What are you going to do? What are you going to use? Those right there. Levelers. Levelers. Okay, so now here I am on the ladder. See? Look how the levelers work. These levelers are very safety conscious. I put my life on these levelers. I trust them with everything I have because I know they're going to work. If they weren't functioning properly, I would change them. I would put new ones on. I know when they're working and I know when they're not working. And these are working. I have put my life on them. Now, this is only maybe, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My head is 10 feet above the ground. If I was to fall and hit that corner right there with my head, or that corner right there with my head, or that rock right there with my head, or that rock right there with my head, or land with my neck, I would die. Better knock on wood. But that's what would happen. And right now, as you can see, those levelers right there are working for me. They're not working against me. They're not plotting against me. They're not failing against me. They're working for me. They're producing for me. They're making this ladder right here become highly functional, more functional than if it did not have levelers. Levelers are a must. Sure, you can get the Leveloks. You can get a pivot tool, that'll work too, so will a brick and a board. But these are on the ladder. I carried this 2 sections and that section and my bucket into the backyard. I don't have to go back to the front to get a pivot tool. Could you imagine carrying a pivot tool with the ladders and the bucket? You'd need 3 arms. Here I just walked 1 trip to the backyard and I've got my ladders and my bucket and everything I need. Now here's another thing about levelers. Levelers are not extenders. If you'll see here, I've got the levelers all the way out, all the way out. That means only one thing, that it's extended the ladder 1 more foot. Sometimes you need 1 more foot on your ladder. You know, as a standard operating procedure, you never use your levelers as extenders because they can fail. They will fail if you have them improperly adjusted. Now, maybe you might need this 1 time out of 1,000, But when you do that, that's called a calculated risk. But when you make it a standard operating procedure, using these as extenders, then you're being foolish. You're putting your life on the line. You're risking these levelers to fail. They're not extenders, they're levelers. Now if you notice, these aren't fully extended, they're halfway extended. This is a calculated risk I would be taking to get my ladder at the base of that window. If the standoffs were a little bit lower, because I didn't extend the ladder 8 inches, 7 inches, then I wouldn't be able to do the whole plate. But just because I know I don't want to do this, I brought this extra piece. So I'm going to drop these down. I'm going to put the piece in here, and then the ladder will extend to above the window. I don't know if you can see that because there's shade in there, but if you look, there it is right there. I'm going to set the ladder right there, and then I'll be able to get both sides and still use one ladder set. So I really don't need, in this situation, to make the calculated risk to using these as extenders on this situation. So I'm going to not extend them and not make the calculated risk when I have the extra piece right here. Now as you can see, I've got the levelers down. I've got my base section, my midsection, and my tip. In the tip, I have it turned around where the stabilizers are off away from the building. I don't need to take them off in this particular situation. All I gotta do is turn it around and it works. And the ladder is perfectly set exactly where I wanted it. I knew when I was working inside how many sections of ladder I was going to need. One other thing about sectional ladders, if you notice, this is a 6-foot base. It goes right here. This is a 6-foot base, okay? If I put my arm up this much higher, it's like maybe 6 feet and 4 inches. That's as far as I can reach. If this was an 8-foot or a 7-foot base, there was no way I could stack it, because here's the 6-foot rung, here's the 7-foot rung, there's the 8-foot rung. You know how hard it would be to try to take the 7-foot midsection and put it here? I mean, that would be a struggle. Maybe I might drop the base against the glass right here. That's why you need 6-foot sections, not 7-foot sections or 8-foot sections, especially on the bases and or on the midsections. You know, others have talked about having a 8-foot tip. Well, that's not going to hurt having an 8-foot tip. You go inside this house here and you carry the ladder in there, and it's a 6-foot, you might just hit the top, you'll hit the roof inside. That's what's nasty about an 8-foot tip or 8-foot sections. Even still, if you had an 8-foot section, you would have to lay all your sections on the ground to set it up. That's anti-functional. That is not sectional functionality, to have your ladders laying on the ground to put together. Okay then, so I'm going to go ahead and let it go right there. There are the levelers on level ground. It's as though I don't have levelers on there right now. When you go to areas like this or like that, a rockery that you're working around, you're going to need to have levelers. That's all there is to it. Sure, you can have a pivot. Sure, you can build up something there with some bricks and boards. Why? I mean, a pivot will work. I mean, it's functional. But you have to carry it clear to the backyard with your bucket and with your ladders. I came back here with both of these all in one trip. I'm leaving all in one trip. Okay, y'all. Be safe, think safe, act safe. This is Dangerous Dave to you, signing off.